What is going on, guys? Back again today. For those of you that are new here, my name is Ivan Compres. I'm 20 years old and I run an online fitness coaching business where I help men transform their lives and become their best versions. Today, I wanted to talk about, how life can get lonely sometimes. Oftentimes we go through periods of being alone, but I want to talk about my experience with it. For those of you that are new, I was in a relationship that lasted almost 2 years, most recently. It just ended back in May, and I was cheated on, went through a lot of problems in that relationship. Truly, I wanted to make it work. With everything in my soul, I wanted to make it work, even though that wasn't the person for me. I deserved so much better than that, but my ego was constantly trying to make it work, trying to pull strings, trying to just make it, forcefully be what I wanted it to be. And one way or another, God removed it from my life. It left my life. And, I think back to times before I met that girl. There was a period in which it was kind of just me and I had to be at peace with me. I felt very lonely for a while because I was single. And I felt very lonely until I met that girl. But up until right before I met that girl, I was finally becoming at peace with me. And then that's when she came into my life. And now I feel as if you aren't able to find peace alone, the relationship that you may get into isn't going to fill that if that's what you want. I was constantly placing my self-worth on that relationship once I got into it. I placed my self-worth on how the relationship dynamic was. If she wasn't happy, I would take offense to it. I would feel like it was all my fault. Just any little thing within the relationship, I put my self-worth on it, and that destroyed me in the end. So when that relationship left the picture, it felt like it was coming down, because I always put the relationship first, before everything else, before the money, before the career, before everything. My whole life was almost as if it was plotted around this relationship. And it's crazy to think, I was very career-oriented, very driven in everything. I was always super focused on what I had in front of me, always super focused on my goals and my dreams and becoming successful. But when I was in this relationship, all I was really thinking about was her. I was changing my goals and shifting them so that it could kind of support the relationship's success per se. I remember she went off to school, and I always had these dreams of traveling and going overseas and just being free. And I remember in my mind I was holding it back because these thoughts would go through my head what if she cheats? What if this happens? What if this happens? Which, now looking back on it, were valid. But I used to think in my head all these thoughts. And I quickly realized that, the thoughts that I was having, they were holding me back. Because I was so fixated on making this thing work that was never going to work, that I spent so much energy, so much time, that it was for nothing. It was for nothing. And it all stemmed from me being afraid to be alone. Me being afraid to be with myself. I just wanted that person with me all the time. Not necessarily with me physically, but just to be with me, to love me, to love them and to care for them. But I didn't realize, I wasn't thinking in my head I already lived so many years up until that. I'm gonna be fine, I'm gonna live. And at the end of the day, God calls us all to be at peace with self. Right? No other person in the world is going to take away our problems, is going to take away our stresses, is going to make us feel peace but us and but the love of God. And it wasn't until I hit rock bottom, after finding out I got cheated on, that I finally turned to Christ, and I finally really turned to God. When I was in that relationship, I didn't really care too much about God. I didn't care too much about any of that. But when I hit rock bottom and there was nowhere else to go, and I felt alone as ever, I turned to Him, and I received more love than I had in that entire relationship. When you're alone, being lonely, there's a beauty in that. And I was always so afraid of it. It was something I feared almost. I feared being alone. I feared just having no friends, not being in a relationship, not having someone to love. That all scared me. But now I realize, especially after I read more scripture, that being alone is very powerful because you learn more about you and you get to connect more with God. You think back to these pivotal points in the Bible. Jesus was alone and fasted for 40 days in the wilderness, alone, no human contact. And He was able to learn Himself on a deeper level and prepare for what was to come. And right now, I'm kind of in a phase where that relationship ended I'm very happy being alone. But sometimes I do think about it. I think about, oh, maybe, if I could meet a godly woman, that would be amazing. Maybe if I could meet my wife, that would be amazing. But I also realize that there's no need to rush that's going to come in divine timing. That right now I need to focus on me. Because as soon as, as humans, we fixate on these things, like, oh, I just need somebody, I need that girl, I need that woman to love, I need a girlfriend, I want a girlfriend. You lose track of what's important in your God-given purpose. Obviously, as humans, we're wired to want to procreate, we're wired to want to love, another person intimately. But at the same time, there's a very, very important fact that is very looked over, is you need to self-develop yourself to get that. If you want a godly woman, you need to be a godly man. You need to be a man that can provide, that can protect, that is strong, that is powerful, that allows her to step into her feminine nature around you. There's a lot to it. And oftentimes in society nowadays, with all these hookup cultures being glorified, all these one-night stands being glorified, all these terrible toxic relationships being glorified, that's kind of out of the normal. People will look at you weird for self-developing and not wanting a girlfriend. People will look at you weird for not hooking up. People will look at you weird for not being just, I guess you could say, unclean and sinning in that way. For me, ever since that last relationship ended, being celibate, choosing the path of celibacy is more appealing to me every day. I'm a Christian, I believe in God, but I honestly want to take it to another level and just not fornicate until I'm married. Because the last relationships I was in, I did that, and I look back on it, I don't regret it because it already happened. I can't change the past, but I learned from it, and I learned that I feel as if that's not something I want to do anymore, because I want to learn to love not only myself but that other person on a deeper level before I connect with them that intimately. But anyways, I say all that to say that it's so important to be comfortable with you, because if you get into a relationship and you rush it and you start placing all these feelings, all these emotions, all these things that you don't want to face on that other person, you're in for a rough ride. Because the last relationships I were in were full of that. They were very painful. Very painful. But if you just take the time to be alone and to build yourself up and to get comfortable with that loneliness, be comfortable with yourself, you'll get to a point where you're unrecognizable. You'll be so confident, so sharp, so happy, because you'll realize that, I love myself. There were points in my life when I couldn't even look in the mirror and say I loved myself. I would see skin and bones, be skinny, unconfident, carried myself with my head down. And now it's I look at myself in the mirror and I love who I see. I love who I see. I look amazing. I am amazing, both inside and out, and I see that. And it's because I've spent countless time with me. When that last breakup happened, it really forced me to do a lot of introspection and look within. It forced me to sit down with myself and have uncomfortable conversations. It forced me to dig deeper in the gym every single workout. It forced me to go even harder with my diet because I wanted to look the best possible and take care of this temple that God's given me. But it takes running into your fears for you to truly conquer them. I always feared being lonely, but guess what? I ran right into it. And since May to now, I'm an unrecognizable person. I'm a completely different person. If you knew Ivan back in April, May, I'm way different than me now. And it's because I sat down with myself and did what was hard. I started waking up early every single day, consistently 5:30 a.m. every single day, hitting push-ups every morning, doing cold showers, reading, journaling, getting tons of work done, going all in on YouTube, gaining 250 subscribers in 1 month. It all was behind me getting comfortable with the uncomfortable. And if you're watching this and you're afraid of being alone, maybe you're in a relationship that isn't good for you, but you're holding on to it. Maybe you crave that girlfriend so bad because you feel like it's going to fill your void with all your problems. Well, I'm telling you, nothing is going to fill that void but becoming comfortable with yourself and connecting with God. Because that's what filled it for me. There's no greater love than the love of God. No other person, no other human being is going to fill whatever you feel you need but God. I'm telling you, nothing of the world is going to satisfy you, because guess what? What's of the world you can't take to the grave, but what you do take to the grave is your soul. And what does it cost to gain the world if you lose your soul in the process? Yeah, you can gain all the money. Yeah, you can gain all the women. Yeah, you can gain whatever, the drugs. But that doesn't go with you to the grave. What does is your soul. And how do you think your soul's gonna feel if when you die, you know you didn't do everything you should have? You know you were meant for more, but you didn't complete that. Every single dream you have in your head is there for a reason. It's there because God planted it inside of you. It's there because there is a reality in which you have every single thing. If you go to sleep at night and you imagine yourself and like you're thinking, yo, what if I was jacked? What if I had that woman of my dreams? What if I ran that business that gave me financial freedom? All those thoughts, there's a reality in which you have it all. But it's up to you to take action and have enough faith to bring it into this one. You know, you ever watch those movies in which there's like the time travelers and they talk about like, oh, all these different, scenarios. If this happens, this will happen. But if this happens, this thing will happen. Like, that's literally how it is. All those different scenarios and realities and whatever the word is, they're all real. It's just up to you which one you want to choose. It's up to you which one you want to step into. And at the end of the day, you have a choice, right? If you continue down this path you're going, in which you're doing these degenerate things that you know you shouldn't. Maybe you're hooking up with a lot of girls. Maybe you're vaping and drinking all the time. You know what that leads to. You know what it does, because up here, you know what it leads to. But you also know what it leads to if you leave that all in the past. Go all in on the gym. Go all in on your walk with Christ and show up every day. You know what it looks like. Because I remember how it used to feel when I was deep in the midst of that, when I was drinking all the time, when I was fornicating all the time, when I was vaping and doing all these things I shouldn't have. I remember how I felt. And I remember I'd look myself in the mirror and I would see glimpses of where my life was going. And I was like, yeah, no way. No way am I going to throw this precious life away. And now I look in the mirror, knowing that each and every single day I go all in. And I see where my life is going and I love it. I get excited for where it's going because I know what there is. I know what it holds. Every day excites me because I know that I'm on the path that God is calling me to. But back when I used to live the way I did, I used to fear what was ahead because I knew I was going down a route that I wasn't supposed to. We all have free will. And it's the greatest gift from God. But it can either construct us or destruct us. It's up to us how we want to use it. You can use free will to your advantage to create life, to spread love, to change the world, or you can use it to destruct you and destruct the world by fornicating, using drugs, getting high, whatever you want to do. But it's truly up to how you use it. But what matters is God is going to let you go because He's a loving Father. He's not going to control you. But when it's time and your time ends on this earth, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? There's no greater pain than a regret-filled coffin. I don't want you to go and die one day and regret that you didn't do everything you should have. I want you to pass away knowing that you did everything you could in this world. You know how peaceful that must feel? To leave this earth and be like, yo, I literally did everything I could have. Like, I'm so proud of myself. I'm so happy. I got no regrets. That's it. Peace. Like, that must feel so good. But I feel like it must feel so terrible to know that, bro, that's literally it. I don't have another chance to live the life as Ivan again and do everything I wanted. Like, that must feel so painful. And that's what drives me every day, knowing that there is a possibility that that could happen if I do not lock in on a day-to-day basis. God called me for so much more. And that's why every day when I don't want to wake up, when I don't want to do the work, when I don't want to go all in, I show up anyways because I'm like, God, you are giving me this beautiful opportunity. I need to act on it. I need to do every single thing that is on my mind. That big dream, the Lamborghini Urus, retiring my parents, having an amazing, beautiful family with tons of kids with a godly woman, being able to travel the whole world, being financially free, creating generational wealth, all of that, that's all that I want, and that's all that God has planted inside of me for a reason. Because I'm here to serve. I'm here to serve the world one way or another. I'm not just here for those dreams that I have about myself, but I want to change the world. I want to serve. I want to make the world a better place. Truly. Because there's so much evil, so much negativity out there. We need more light. We need more positivity. We just gotta, level up, and it's one person at a time. Stay locked in on yourself. If you aren't locked in right now, go all in, because I'm telling you, you won't regret it. We're at the back end of 2025. You still have an opportunity and a chance to change your life and make it the way you want it to. You have the free will, as I mentioned, to do it. But every day that you wake up and don't take action, every day that you go out and drink and hook up with random girls, every day that you vape and do these things you know you shouldn't, you steer off track. You put yourself in a position you shouldn't be. So bro, I'm telling you, it's already September. If you actually sat down, wrote down every single one of your biggest goals, broke it down even further into daily tasks to get yourself closer to those big goals, and then promised yourself to take action on it or else there's a punishment, who's stopping you? Nobody. Because you have the power within you. Don't just watch this video all the way through and say, yeah, he's right, and then not do anything. You're being called. You're being called to act. Not by me, but by God. You're being called. And if you're watching this far through, it's a sign. So sit down with yourself. Make the plan now as soon as this video ends. And get to it and act on it. Because I'm telling you, you got to do it for you, but the world also needs you. And for those of you that feel like, you don't really have a sense of direction, feel like you're struggling with, your addictions, you're struggling with overcoming low confidence, you're struggling with just putting yourself in the position and getting to the life that you want, apply for Built by Faith coaching down below. If you're a fit, we'll hop on a call. If it makes sense, we'll take it from there. But for those of you guys who watched all the way through, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you aren't following the Instagram, follow on the Instagram for daily posts, daily uploads on my stories. You'll see everything behind the scenes in depth. But I will catch you guys on the next one. Peace.